Imagine the perfect summer night. You're at a water park. There's loud EDM music, flashing lights, and a crowd of 4,000 young people dancing in a drained swimming pool. It's supposed to be the happiest party on earth. To heighten the euphoria, the organizers spray tons of colorful powder into the air. Green, yellow, pink clouds floating above the dancers. It looks like magic. But physics doesn't care about the vibe. Physics dictates that if you mix enough fine particulate matter with oxygen and add a heat source, you don't get a party, you get a bomb. On June 27, 2015, at the Formosa Fun Coast water park in Taiwan, the atmosphere didn't just catch fire, it exploded. In exactly 40 seconds, a celebration turned into a scene that first responders compared to purgatory. 15 dead, 499 severely burned. And it all happened because no one understood that they were dancing inside a fuel-air explosive. To understand why this happened, we have to talk about something that seems harmless, but isn't. Cornstarch. In your kitchen, cornstarch is harmless. You use it to thicken sauce. But if you take that same powder, dry it out, and blast it into the air as a fine mist, it changes. It becomes highly flammable. The surface area of the particles increases exponentially. This phenomenon is called a dust explosion. It's usually a danger reserved for coal mines or grain silos, not raves. But the organizers of Color Play Asia didn't read the safety manuals. They wanted a visual spectacle. They brought in 3 tons of colored cornstarch. The setup was a recipe for disaster. They drained a massive pool to use as a dance floor. This meant the crowd was packed into a sunken pit with limited exits. On stage, they had high-powered lights that could reach temperatures of over 400 degrees. And crucially, the staff, mostly students working part-time, were given CO2 canisters to blast the powder into the crowd. They were literally spraying fuel onto a fire. The time is 8:30 p.m. The party is nearing its climax. The DJ is hyping the crowd. To create a grand finale, the staff fires the remaining canisters of powder simultaneously. A massive cloud of green and yellow dust hangs over the dance floor. The concentration is so thick, you can barely see the person next to you. We still debate exactly what sparked it. Some reports say it was a cigarette. Others point to a hot spotlight on the stage. But it doesn't matter. A spark found the dust. They were literally spraying fuel onto a fire. The video footage of this moment is terrifying because of how fast it happens. 1 second, people are cheering. The next, a ball of fire erupts from the stage and rolls over the crowd like a tsunami. This wasn't a normal fire. It was a deflagration. The fire moved through the air, consuming the dust cloud. Because the dust was everywhere, on people's skin, in their hair, in their lungs, the fire was everywhere too. The music was still playing. The bass was still thumping. But now it was drowned out by the sound of 1,000 people screaming at once. Since they were in a drained pool, there was nowhere to run. It was a bowl of fire. People tried to run, but the colored powder on the ground had turned into a slippery paste. They fell, and as they fell, the fire continued to rain down on them. The most horrific detail? The victims were in swimsuits. They had zero protection. The burning starch stuck to their bare skin like napalm. When they tried to wipe it off, the skin came off with it. The fire lasted only 40 seconds before it burned itself out. But the nightmare was just starting. When the lights came back on, the scene was apocalyptic. The water park's lazy river turned into a triage center. People with 80% or 90% body burns jumped into the water to stop the pain. But the pool water wasn't sterile. It was filled with the same cornstarch, which turned into a gel, infecting their open wounds. There were so many victims that ambulances couldn't take them all. Rescuers had to use inflatable pool floaties, rubber donuts and unicorns, as stretchers to carry the dying. The medical system of Taiwan collapsed under the strain. Here is a fact that puts the scale of this tragedy into perspective. The burn injuries were so extensive that Taiwan literally ran out of skin. The government had to issue an emergency international plea. Countries like the United States, the Netherlands, and Japan had to fly in cadaver skin, donor skin from dead bodies, just to patch up the survivors. You would expect the person responsible for this to go to prison for life. Liu Chongqi, the owner of the Color Play Asia company, was the man who approved the use of the powder. He knew, or should have known, that the cornstarch was flammable. The packaging even had warnings on it. He was charged with negligent manslaughter. The verdict? 5 years. 5 years in prison for 15 deaths and nearly 500 lives ruined forever. Many of the survivors were young students, models, and athletes. They underwent amputations. Some have had over 20 surgeries and still can't close their eyes because their eyelids burned off. The Formosa Fun Coast water park was shut down indefinitely. Today, it sits abandoned. The slides are rusting. The pools are filled with rainwater and algae. It's a ghost town. The tragedy at Formosa Fun Coast wasn't an accident in the true sense of the word. An accident is something unpredictable. This was physics. It is a brutal reminder that safety regulations are written in blood. We see colored powder and think of festivals, joy, and Instagram photos. We don't think of coal mines. We don't think of explosives. But ignorance is flammable. So the next time you are at a concert or a club and you see clouds of unknown gas or powder filling the air, look for the exit. Because the line between a party and a disaster is often just a single spark.